Asylum Inc. presents Survival Instincts. Bone Children of Hollow Ridge. The children of Hollow Ridge began their excavations on the night of the autumn equinox, their small hands guided by whispers that seemed to seep from the earth itself like poisonous dew. What they unearthed in the shadow of Old Bones Creek would transform this forgotten Appalachian settlement into a charnel house of inherited madness, where the sins of the past writhed with malevolent consciousness beneath the loam. Mrs. Adelaide Coker discovered her 7-year-old daughter Emma in the backyard at 3 a.m, naked and mud-caked, her fingernails torn and bleeding from clawing at the hard-packed clay. The child sat cross-legged before a shallow pit, cradling what appeared to be a human femur against her chest like a beloved doll. When Adelaide approached, Emma's eyes rolled back until only the whites showed, and she spoke in a voice not her own, ancient, guttural, speaking words in a dialect that predated the Hollow's settlement by centuries. "The marrow remembers," Emma intoned, her small voice carrying harmonics that seemed to bypass the ear and resonate directly in Adelaide's bones. "The children must gather, the children must dig, the children must listen." By dawn, 17 children between the ages of 5 and 12 had been discovered throughout Hollow Ridge in similar states of somnambulistic excavation. Each clutched skeletal remains that defied anatomical classification, rib cages with too many bones, skulls bearing eye sockets arranged in triangular patterns, femurs that branched and twisted like arthritic fingers. The bones possessed a peculiar luminescence in the pre-dawn gloom, pulsing with a rhythm that matched the children's synchronized heartbeats. Dr. Marcus Tylard, the county's sole pediatrician, examined the children with mounting horror. Their pupils had dilated to pinpricks despite the dim examination room lighting, and their skin had taken on a waxy, translucent quality that revealed the dark tracery of veins beneath. Most disturbing were the hair-thin fractures that had appeared along their forearms and shins, not breaks, but deliberate perforations, as if something were trying to work its way out from within their bones. "They're not responding to standard neurological tests," Tylard confided to Sheriff Donovan Hayes in hushed tones. "Their brain activity shows patterns I've never seen, synchronized theta waves that suggest they're sharing some form of collective consciousness. And their bone density. Christ, Tom, their bones are becoming hollow, like bird bones, but with internal structures that shouldn't exist." The whispers began that night, carried on the wind that swept down from the ancient peaks. Parents reported hearing their children's voices drifting through the walls, not words, but a susurrus of secrets spoken in tandem, a chorus of juvenile throats producing sounds that predated human language. Those brave enough to investigate found their children standing motionless beside their beds, eyes wide and unseeing, mouths moving in perfect synchronization as they channeled voices from the hollow earth. Research into the Hollow's history revealed the expected litany of Appalachian Gothic, vanished settlements, unexplained deaths, stories of bone gardens, where the mountain folk once interred their dead, according to rituals that borrowed from Cherokee burial practices and older, darker traditions. But it was in the journal of Ezekiel Mordecai, a circuit preacher who ministered to the Hollow in 1847, that the true horror began to coalesce. Mordecai wrote of children who spoke with the voices of the unquiet dead, of a settlement where the bones of the buried rose to the surface each autumn like some hellish harvest. He described a marrow plague that transformed the living into hollow vessels for ancestral malevolence, children whose bones became repositories for the accumulated guilt and rage of generations. His final entries devolved into frantic warnings about the colony in the calcium, about bones that dreamed and whispered and spread like infection through bloodlines. The transformation accelerated as October deepened. The children began to exhibit structural changes that defied medical explanation, their limbs elongating, their joints developing additional articulation points that allowed for impossible ranges of motion. X-rays revealed that their bone marrow had been entirely replaced by a fibrous, root-like network that pulsed with bioluminescent activity. When Dr. Tylard attempted to take bone marrow samples, the drill bits emerged coated with a substance that writhed and whispered, forming temporary mouths that spoke the names of the Hollow's dead before dissolving into acidic foam. The children gathered nightly in the cemetery beside Old Bones Creek. Their movements become fluid and predatory as they excavated deeper into the consecrated ground. What they brought forth bore no resemblance to natural remains: spinal columns that spiraled like drill bits, pelvic bones fused into altar-like platforms, skulls whose cranial capacity had been increased through impossible geometric folding. Each bone sang with its own harmonic frequency, and together they formed a symphony of ossified malevolence that could be heard for miles. Parents who attempted to intervene found their own bones responding to the call. Adelaide Coker developed stress fractures along her arms after trying to restrain Emma, the cracks forming patterns that spelled out warnings in archaic script. Sheriff Hayes discovered that his childhood injuries, a broken collarbone from a hunting accident, compound fractures from a mining collapse, had begun to ache and whisper, the old bone grafts rejecting his flesh as they sought to rejoin their source colony. The breaking point came on Halloween night, when the children completed their grotesque excavation. What emerged from the earth beside Old Bones Creek was not a single entity, but a composite horror. Hundreds of unnatural bones fused into a massive, writhing framework that supported no organs, no flesh, only the pure, malevolent consciousness that had been accumulating in the Hollow's calcium deposits for generations. The structure towered 30 feet above the creek bed, its surface crawling with phosphorescent marrow that pulsed in rhythm with the children's unified heartbeat. The children, no longer recognizable as human, their bones having erupted through their flesh in coral-like formations, arranged themselves in concentric circles around their ossified god. They began to sing, not with their voices, but with the resonant frequencies of their transformed skeletons, creating harmonics that shattered windows throughout the hollow and caused spontaneous nosebleeds among the adults who heard them. Those few residents who survived the night spoke of bones that erupted from the earth throughout the hollow, not just human remains, but the accumulated calcium of every creature that had ever died in the valley, all animated by the same hungry consciousness. Trees split open to reveal skeletal frameworks within their trunks. Houses collapsed as their foundations gave way to tunnels carved by burrowing bones. The creek itself began to flow white with dissolved calcium as the entity extended its influence through the water table. By dawn, Hollow Ridge had become a necropolis of living bone. The military cordon established around the area reported structural anomalies that defied explanation. Buildings whose support beams had been replaced overnight with architectures of fused ribs and vertebrae. Roads that buckled and cracked as skeletal fingers pushed through the asphalt. Aerial reconnaissance revealed that the entire settlement had been transformed into a massive mandala of bone, with the towering ossuary beside the creek serving as its central nervous system. The children, what remained of them, had become permanent fixtures in this calcium cathedral, their consciousness absorbed into the collective marrow intelligence that now pulsed beneath the hollow. Thermal imaging showed no individual heat signatures, only the vast, distributed warmth of the bone colony as it continued its patient work of transformation. Investigators' notes. The Hollow Ridge incident represents an unprecedented manifestation of what can only be termed inherited malevolence, a form of consciousness that accumulates and concentrates within calcium deposits across generations. The entity appears to use children as primary vectors due to their developing skeletal systems and susceptibility to psychic influence. Attempts to contain the spread have proven ineffective. Similar incidents have been reported in settlements downstream from Old Bones Creek, always beginning with children who claim to hear whispers from the earth. The affected area continues to expand at a rate of approximately 1 mile per month. Current recommendations include immediate evacuation of all settlements within a 50-mile radius and the establishment of permanent monitoring stations to track the entity's expansion. Under no circumstances should personnel enter the affected zone without full hazmat protection and continuous calcium level monitoring. Warning: this report should not be read aloud. Several researchers who vocalized passages during transcription have reported phantom bone pain and intrusive thoughts about digging deeper. Audio recordings of the children's bone song remain highly classified due to their demonstrated ability to induce skeletal anomalies in listeners. The bones remember. The bones whisper. The bones spread. Do not let your children play in the dirt. If you found yourself stirred, unsettled, or just a bit more wary of shadows, consider offering a like to feed the entity that powers these tales. And should you subscribe, you may yet survive to hear the next whisper from the void.